You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network. Now the largest new media platform on the web and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's Falling Skies After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Falling Skies After Show.
Hey everybody, Bing is for doing, and we are doing another episode of Falling Skies. This is Season 2, Episode 4, Young Blood. I am Tamara Berg. You can tweet me at Tamara Berg. I'm joined in the studio by Stephen Bottomley.
Hello.
And Derrial Christon.
Hello, everybody.
Because I can say thing as in sort of European.
The proper right.
With European.
Right, I'll never live that down.
Well, it's
so
easier to
European.
remember the other way, but
Yeah.
what's that, Steve?
I said you're so European.
I'm so European.
You're so European. You're able to say his proper last name.
Oh, yes, I can. Yeah, Steve, adjust your mic. Okay, so let's just get right into it. There was a lot going on this episode.
Lots.
We have... So what we talked about before we came on the air was just that a lot of this episode was basically about family, about the family dynamics, about how people feel about family. There was a lot of emotion involved, and that is kind of an undercurrent of the entire show, especially with the Tom character. But I think that was really, even though it's titled Young Blood, I think family was a really important sort of through line for this entire episode.
Yeah, and I was glad they went there.
Yeah.
I was, because as crazy as this new world is, I am curious to know, well, how do you navigate it? And how do you work the family dynamic? And they did a really good job of showing all the different levels of what a family is and becomes.
Yeah, I mean, you got to see everyone's sort of emotional side this episode. I mean, from Weaver to, I mean, we know about Tom, but you definitely got to see a different side with him, and especially with the younger son, Matt. So,
well, let's talk about the big bombshell that we got at the beginning of the show, and that was we found this new sort of community of children that have no adults with them. They come back with Ben and Hal, right?
Yeah.
Right.
To second mass. One of them is a girl named Jeannie. Jeannie walks in and goes, "Oh my God, Dad!"
Exactly what she said.
Yeah, but at that part, you guys remember the movie Children of the Corn?
Oh God,
that popped in my head when I saw those kids, because I was like, there's no adults.
Right.
You know, the oldest one is
Right.
like 16 years old, Mr. Diego, the introduction to the Diego character.
Right.
And I just thought Children of the Corn, like all these kids attacking the adults, and surviving.
Well, it was an interesting line they gave him. The adults get us killed.
Right, they did say that.
Right.
That back to season 1 where everybody was cutting a deal with the Skidders trying to stay alive, and there was that camp that was giving the kids up. But I thought that was really cool that was still kind of being kept alive.
Yeah.
With that philosophy.
Right.
Um,
So Jeannie arrived. Sorry, was there something else you were going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, how it even sort of, just so we kind of explained the beginning, is that they found the group of kids, but the kids had stolen, Diego had stolen Hal and Ben's
motorcycles,
Yeah.
right.
And then they go back to get the motorcycle back, which was actually pretty badass on Hal's part. He wanted his bike back.
Well, I mean, that's really a connection to life and getting things done. I mean,
Right.
your possessions aren't so much about, oh, I'm so sentimental about that. We can't really survive if things start getting stolen like that, especially critical, key things that connect you to other parts of civilization, where we can find the Korean grocery store and get the Choco Puffs or whatever those things were.
Right.
Choco Pie.
Choco Pie, sorry.
Yeah, and the way that he did it was very cool.
Yeah.
He wasn't a jerk about it.
Right.
But it did, and we'll touch on it later, but I did like how they worked together.
Yeah, I agree.
Ben and Hal. But yeah, so they walk in, and that's Jeannie. That's who he's been searching for.
Yep.
And I was expecting something a little bigger. You know, it's like.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. I just kind of thought there would be more of an emotional reunion, but
except he's a military dude.
She's pissed off at him.
And she's pissed off at him,
yeah,
exactly.
And they did address that. And
yeah.
The story with the mom.
And the world's a different place now than it was a year ago, which actually for me would make it more sentimental, because you've spent a year being disconnected from all of the things and all the people that you used to count on. That would create cause for me to have an incredible, I'm a sentimental gal anyway, but an incredibly sentimental reunion, because you're sitting there thinking, she's been thinking for a year her dad's dead.
Yeah.
You know what? And I keep going back to the problem we have doing this show and watching a show is your brain is split. You're busy making notes that if you were just sitting there, I probably would have been more connected. I probably would have been more emotionally involved, but I'm frantically trying to, keep track of thoughts and everything, and especially on a critical scene like that.
Right, and when hopefully when AfterBuzz gets bigger, we'll start getting advanced copies so we can watch twice, like we used to do for, not that we got advanced copies, but we used to watch Justified twice, and that made it a lot easier to catch the nuances and really.
Or we'll have people watch it for us.
That will work, yeah.
And then we can just sit here.
And then they can just give us all the information. It's kind of like the Skitters.
Yes.
Real quickly, I forgot to mention Sophia's not with us tonight. We have this one big empty
Sophia,
chair.
We need like a mannequin.
Task.
Yes, we need a mannequin. And put everybody's face on it.
Sophia could not be here tonight with us. She will be with us next week. Sorry, Sophia. We were obviously really focused on what our job is here today. So she'll be with us next week, and she might get a chance to call in and chat with us. But I think we're on our own without her this week. So, but we'll see her next week. Okay. So to continue on with Jeannie and Weaver and Diego, she's very happy to see her dad, but then she delivers the news that her mother is indeed dead. Now, he had held out the hope that mom was still alive because of the glasses, right?
Yeah.
And he thought that she was leaving him that message to say that, things were still okay.
Yeah, and that they weren't there, and then he found them. So she died of a stroke because no one was there to take care of her.
Right. She had medication. They said that she had to keep filling.
And he used to do it.
And he used to do it for her. She would forget even when they were together, and then eventually.
It was just kind of
work out.
That whole thing just for me felt like, okay, let's clean up stories. This whole episode kind of to me felt like, let's clean some stuff up because we're bringing new stuff in.
Yeah.
And there's all these storylines that we need
that are sort of need resolving.
Yeah.
You think they jumped over it too quickly, or?
No, I don't think they jumped over it too quickly. I just think that it was more, like I said, more of an episode of let's just button these stories up.
Yeah.
So that we can start introducing some other stuff that we want to start to
introduce. And speaking of that, we've been talking most of the time, especially on the air, we're very supportive and positive of the show, but we do have criticisms about it. Sure. One of them is that we're kind of feeling like certain storylines, we were talking about this before we went in to watch, that certain storylines are sort of dangling, that certain rules within the world of the aliens aren't exactly set perfectly, and we don't know, Steve, you and I are so familiar with Graham Yost shows, and we're all really, familiar with Steven Spielberg pieces.
Right.
We expect sort of a level of excellence, and for me personally, I'm kind of sitting between the line of, are they being so complex that they're trying to do too many things and there's too much for everybody to remember, including us as well as the writers, or are they being lazy? Which could be a possibility. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that, there's, even from the first season, they've developed so many different storylines that have grown.
Yeah.
I think that further down the line, there has been a couple, or as we're watching it right now, I think there has been a couple of storylines. I was like, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, and they should develop a little bit more. Even last week, when we were speaking about the episode from last week, and the character, I want to call her Amelia Earhart,
I have it right here. Avery Churchill.
Avery Churchill. It's a question if she's going to be coming back. She wasn't even spoken about this particular episode.
Right.
So there are those storylines that kind of fade to the left.
Well, that
sometimes.
since we're headed towards Charleston, I'm sure if not Avery, the Charleston moment is obviously going to be addressed.
Right, for sure.
But the reason I bring this up is just what you're saying. You know, it's felt like they're tying up loose ends in this episode, and maybe they are, and kind of trying to get better on track and be a little more focused with their storytelling instead of being kind of shotgun method.
Yeah. And I agree with that criticism.
Yeah.
And I really don't like to call any writer lazy. And I'm not saying you were.
I agree.
But because we know how difficult it is.
Yeah.
There's a saying that you just sit down and open a vein, and a lot of times it's like, oh, and now you've got all these other storylines with actors now saying, yeah, where's what now, what?
Yeah.
So that reality is also in place.
Well, and also on a show
but
like...
it's a valid criticism, because you've done the work to get, like I said, smart viewers involved.
Right.
Yes.
And you have to stay smart.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of frustrated smart viewers going, wait a minute, what about this? What about this?
Hang on.
And when your viewers are coming up with solutions, you got a problem.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to go, hey, well, why didn't we see this? Or this is something going on. So.
But do you think that in their writing that they can only focus on a certain amount of things, because they are, the storyline is that they're moving through Charleston, so there's only so many storylines that they can focus on for each particular episode?
Well...
Yeah, I would say yes and no. And one of the things to consider is that a lot of these shows are kind of written by committee, and sometimes people are not. Of course, you're given the Bible, so you know what everyone's backstory is and things that we never see on the screen, but sometimes things just get lost and fall through the cracks.
Right.
But I was reading a couple of message boards today, and people were saying, I get the feeling like the people who are writing season 2 didn't watch season 1. Now, I'm not saying that, but I did see a viewer read that and write that, and I read it, and I thought, wow, that really is giving viewers a sense that we're not in great hands, maybe.
Yeah.
So maybe that's. I'm being hopeful that they're getting back on track and kind of more true to the core of the story. So that we can go forward and do things like Charleston and see what's happening with the other characters.
And I do know, based off just kind of piggybacking what you just said, I do remember reading that there is a new set of writers from the first season through to the second season. So maybe that is also, we need to take that into
and maybe what they're
consideration.
right. I remember you saying that in the beginning of this season, and maybe what's happening is they are feeling like season 1 was too scattershot, and that they're having to get some things resolved, so they are getting back on track. We're only in episode 4,
right?
So
we got a long way to go.
Yeah, but there's some transitional problems that people are noticing. For instance, suddenly Pope and the Berserkers are all together. That never happened in season 1. I came in at the beginning of season 2. I just got caught up, thank you, and I was always under the assumption that, there's somewhere at the end of season 1.
There was a ceremony?
Yeah, somehow they all got together and it never happened. And then at the top of season 2, they're all together. Not only that, but here's a guy that they only let cook and kept away. Suddenly he's like in charge. And so that sort of stuff where you kind of go, that thought of it's like they didn't keep track of the 2 seasons.
Of the 2 seasons.
Well, and in certain ways you do suspend your disbelief and you just kind of make the leap. Because I made the leap until you pointed it out to me. And I went, oh.
Right.
That's true.
But what happens is once you say, okay, it's okay for your viewers to do that, that's a really easy well to go to.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we did it here. And after a while, a viewer's going to go, again, when the viewer's coming up with a better solution, that's not a good place.
The viewers start to not respect the show, really.
But the odd thing is, and I know we're getting off on a tangent, but the odd thing is they do it because they do respect the show.
Of course.
Because they're so invested in the characters and they so want this awesome experience, and it's like it's all right there except for when it misses.
Right.
And like really good shows, when it misses, it's really noticeable.
It's painful. It's painful.
So, maybe that's also within the writing, from the change of the first season through the second
exactly.
season.
So maybe there was no transition
team.
Maybe there was no who knows what happened. I'd love to have somebody in here who could answer some of those questions, but so we are way off topic.
Yeah, we are a little bit, but I mean we kind of almost went into topic 4 just to wrap up. So the Jeannie the Weaver Diego story. So
but I do have a point on that.
Okay,
which is
really
no ways.
Oddly
go
enough.
Figure.
So Weaver gets Jeannie back, and then they have to go back to the fort and everything. And I'm thinking, I think there's no way Weaver would let his kid go back.
Well, except that he's the commander. He's going to go on a nighttime mission. He's the commander of this entire platoon.
No, I'm saying I don't think Weaver would let
her go
back.
Go back
I
with
agree with
Diego
that.
when
I
yeah.
agree with that.
Oh, I think once he found her, he'd be like, "You're
never leaving my sight again. In fact, I'm going to shackle you to me."
Exactly. I mean,
what
are you guys referring to when she left with Diego to go back at the
to go drop the supplies off and go back to the court?
Right.
Yeah.
Because he kept saying, "You're going to come back in an hour. You're going to come back." Well, to me, I think the Weaver that we knew was you're staying, and if you don't, he's locking you up.
Right.
You know. So again, I'm like, okay,
I think he was
get
shocked.
Why he needed to do it, but you know.
And plus, I think he was initially shocked. I mean, this is, someone.
All the more reason you would say, "I'm never going to let you out of my sight again."
I'm
mean,
with
as
you
a
on
father,
that.
you would be saying, But again, the writer and the arc side and all that stuff, you go, "No, she's got to go back because this has to happen later. You got to do this other thing."
So when they come back and when we get to the end of the story for Weaver and Jeannie, did you even think for a second that she was going to stick around?
No.
I didn't.
No. It's funny. I went through different emotions with it. At first, I thought she was going to stick around, and then, kind of in the middle, I was like, "I bet you she leaves. Somehow she's going to leave." But initially, I thought she was going to become like a main character or a major character for this because it showed a different side of Weaver and his emotional side, and we see him such as the commander.
Right.
So I thought that was an interesting development for him as he kind of transitioned to this other side of who his personality is.
I didn't see her sticking around because of the change that Weaver character had, of the softness of now there's something I need to protect.
Because it would compromise him as a leader too much?
Exactly. Yeah. And but what's interesting is, okay, now what are you going to do with that information now that you have it? Now that she is gone, what do you do? What does the character do? Is he going to just say, I got to go search for her, or she made her decision? How are they going to button that particular storyline up? Or is it one of those things where, and then the Harlem Globetrotters got off the island and and Bobby Sherman came on next week? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, does it just go away, or
Well, we'll have to find out because we're just not going to see for a while, I think. And it might be one of those things where she comes back, in the finale and.
Maybe,
but the point is that now we know Weaver has kind of an Achilles heel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He has a weak spot.
That's his weak spot.
And that could be something that will show up a little bit later.
But so what we have is a little reminder for everyone that if you're going to go shopping online, like, Amazon, do us a favor and go first to AFTERBUZZTV.com and click on the Amazon banner at the top, and then do your shopping. And why you're asking? Well, it's because we get a little from Amazon. It's not a huge amount, but it helps keep our life here happy.
I did it just yesterday.
You got
what'd you get?
I bought some things on Amazon yesterday. I bought a book on Amazon.
All right.
And
how did you do it?
Well, I went to Amazon first, and then I went, wait,
wait a minute.
Open up a new window, went to AfterBuzz, clicked it, and then went through and did it. See, they're making money off of me.
And this is why we keep doing this, because it takes time for even people in this world to remember to do. So, hey, go to AfterBuzzTV.com, click on the Amazon banner. Thank you so much, and we really, really appreciate it.
We really do. It helps us a lot. Okay, so next in the family dynamic, we want to talk about Tom and Matt, and also Anne a little bit in the Tom story.
Yeah, the Tom and Matt, it started off shaky, of course, because just to recap a little bit, Matt was used as sort of the bait to kill the Skitters or
Chichers
and because they introduced two characters who may not be in the longevity of the show future episodes, but Tector and Boone, which are like, I feel like that's like some names from the Dukes of Hazzard or something. Like they should be related to Cletus
or a new video game
new video game, exactly. But
Tector and Boone.
The show opens with basically Matt running from these Skitters, or he's skateboarding, and these Skitters are eyeing him to, capture him, and then all of a sudden you see him against this wall, and bam,
nasty
Tector
ass,
and Boom
gnarly,
blow their heads up, and it was like
off.
Ghostbusters. He had all that ghoul stuff all over him, and blood, and it was a lot of fun blood and action, So
and his line right after was
cool,
awesome.
And then of course, Tom gets upset with his son being used as bait, which I would be upset as well.
Yeah, of course.
Because that wasn't supposed to be the mission of what was supposed to happen.
How old is Matt at this point? 10?
thinking 10.
Yeah.
9,
Maybe.
10-ish.
Yeah.
He's a little kid.
You said 9?
9.
Okay.
9. Okay. Yeah. But you got to see that even at 9, the kid so wants to be part of the battle.
He does.
And so wants to be part of the fight. And
of course.
it's such a challenge for Tom to just say, you got to be a kid just a little bit longer in this crazy world. This is one of those things that I really liked about this episode was even in this insane world that they now have, he's still trying to keep his kid
some sort of normalcy
for just a little bit
longer.
longer.
Yeah.
So
that that's something for me that I really I think about a lot, because there is this short period of time when you're carefree and then you aren't any longer, and we as people never know when it's happening to us. As a kid you always want to grow up, and then you spend the rest of your life hoping to be carefree.
The other, go backwards.
You spend the rest of your life wanting all those naps you could never fall asleep
Exactly.
in.
And not having to pay any bills.
God.
So I so appreciate what Tom's trying to do, because seeing that lost in a child is one of the most painful things to see, I think. But are you kidding? This world?
Yeah.
You want him to be a kid? How is that even possible? Because everything is so serious.
And it's going to be tough for Tom with Matt, because he sees his older brothers, they're fighting, they have all the action. He wants to be just like them. You have all these other guys around them with cool guns and obviously exploding their heads for the skitters. So it's going to be tough for Tom with Matt, I think.
Yeah. Well, and so as we go forward, what happens is Matt goes back with the small core group to the fort that Diego was overseeing, and he ends up getting abducted with Jeannie, Johnny,
Jeannie, Johnny, and Matt.
Yeah. End up being on the stretchers, on the massage tables. And
wow.
That was scary.
That whole harness
It was like Aliens.
That was fantastic,
yeah,
wasn't
that
it?
was one of the best things I think in the show.
Yeah.
Matt running through with the skitters closing in on him, that is how every adult feels when their kid leaves the house, right? When that kid was in the harness room, that's how every kid feels that has a picture of a clown in his room. Okay?
Are we talking personal experiences here?
Okay. That's what it's like, parents who think that's a good idea.
Do you have something to say, Ben?
We are.
I'm like, there's a little personal experience going on in the room right now.
Freaking clown. The eyes follow you.
Everywhere.
No, that was one of those things where you just go, oh my God. And if you looked at the set, it was like nothing but light. And
it was freaky.
Steam.
Well, yeah, but right. So there's a lot left to the imagination, right? Exactly. And then the skitters come down this chute.
Yeah, the chute.
Oh my God!
I know. And then
even the way they had the little their nails or their teeth like embedded into the back, and you see it flip back up. Yeah,
it rears back, and you see that hole. And here's what's great about that, because not only is like you're doing, oh my God, and it's to a child, but now you have a reference for Ben. Now you see
what he went through.
Yeah,
oh
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I did like the fact that they explained how the kids get harnessed in the show. So
in the process.
And the process and the visuals. I mean, I'm serious. I feel like I was watching Aliens.
The dripping goo and the things coming down the chute, and then that whole This is where we appreciate the fact that they have a bigger budget. This
This is really where we do that. That scene's right up there with Eyeworm.
It compares with Eyeworm.
Oh,
I agree.
And I, they gave it the pacing I liked.
Yeah.
It was just enough. They didn't have to go any longer than that.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, you're going, Matt's not going to get harnessed. He's not going to hit it. But Jeannie, I didn't know. They're going, she may get harnessed. Because it is Graham Yost. So
right. Well, and Johnny did, right? I mean, they succeeded in harnessing.
Johnny's a goner.
So, we saw it's a multi-pronged, pardon the pun, approach. So the skitter comes on, it has this head that looks like a worm. Then it has these sort of little needles that come from here, and then it has the legs coming out. So it's quite complex in its electronics and how it's embedding into the body.
And then it glows.
And then it glows. But I like how they even just jumped right into it. I mean, it's like all of a sudden they were leaving, and the next thing you know, they're harnessed or about to be harnessed. I'm like, man, that was a great scene. I didn't see it coming.
Right. Why waste the time getting there? Let's just
I didn't see it.
The other thing that I noticed about is when the skitter would come in and just like be all caressing and like,
no,
you're okay.
You're okay.
You're fine. It'll only hurt for a second.
And then who was it at the end? Was it Diego who shot the skitter that was behind the glass?
No, that was Ben.
Oh, that's Ben.
And
that's
that was like the harnessing aquarium thing.
The harnessing,
right.
yeah, the way they were like running around in that liquid, fluid, whatever.
I guess that's where they grow them.
Ectoplasm.
But yeah, that was an awesome sequence, and they had to the blonde girl got the kids all out of there.
Maggie.
Mm-hmm. She led them all out to safety.
Yes.
Now, I guess this falls under there, but so Weaver gets bit by a harness.
Yeah.
Right.
And do you suppose that was simply so that he could
be incapacitated so that he could have the scene with Jean?
Yeah, I think so.
I do too.
Oh, at first I was wondering, like, is this going to have some effect? Like, is he going to all of a sudden have these weird symptoms or get sick, or I didn't know what was going to happen with him.
Well, I don't think so, just because we've got enough people to worry about at the moment with how are they affected by skitter contact.
Right.
And I think if we're going to go there, we need to give us a little time, because we've still got to figure out what the rules are with Ben and with Tom.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it goes back to the question on, they just harnessed the children, so would it really affect an adult, or what way would it affect the adult?
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think it was just so that they could have their moment and he could have the drugs take effect, so she's got an opportunity to leave. And here's the reason why I don't think we're going to revisit Jean. Because they made it so he couldn't really chase after her.
Right, he doesn't know where she
went.
So, it's going to be one of those, I'm over it, we got to move on.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, well, okay, we got this storyline, let's finish this one, we got this one.
Right.
What happened to the mom? Oh, okay, mom's dead, let's move on. And, although they didn't really close any storylines within the family.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Maybe they'll still keep her around. She may pop up some other time, because they didn't really have a closure with their scene. I mean, they left it open enough.
With a note.
Yeah, they left it open enough.
I'm pretty sure Pope is going to pop up before.
Oh, for sure. Well, yeah,
I was kind of, when the place was trashed, I was like going, oh, we get to meet Pope.
Yeah.
He'll come back.
That's a guarantee. That's a guarantee.
Anne and Tom didn't just kiss.
Yeah, I mean,
they made out.
I feel like they're moving a little fast, that Anne and Tom. I mean, his wife just died a couple months ago. I mean, he's moving a little fast.
She's hot, though.
She's definitely hot, and she's definitely hot. But he's got, his sons, and they're sensitive about their mom dying. I think he's moving a little fast.
Yeah, but also, if you think about when people are put in traumatic situations, the need to bond with somebody else, negative situations or traumatic situations, the need to bond to somebody else is incredibly strong, more so than, when you're just going to work and, punching a time clock.
Right.
So I think that situation intensifies relationships and is intensifying their relationship, just because you've got to find kind of comfort and solace and connection with people in a world that's so crazy like this one is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess at any day you could get killed by a skitter, so what the heck? You might as well just go for it, right?
Might as well mac on Anne.
Get your macking on.
My problem with all of it now is, since, Tammy, you said, I can't watch them without wondering how much they smell. It's like every time I'm wondering, yeah, he probably does smell.
Yeah, they don't smell good. Right when they were doing the kiss, I was going, oh, man, what I would do for toothpaste right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But your standards change when the apocalypse comes.
Yeah, your standards definitely probably switch up a little bit.
And all it took was a Choco Pie.
It did.
That's a Choco Pie.
He could have had that months ago had he known.
Who knew?
But he didn't, and that's the point.
Think what he could get with a tiramisu.
Oh my God! Those are perishable though, so it's probably they were all green many months ago.
You have to stay within a certain brand name, I think, which I'm not going to say because I'm learning.
Because you might get in trouble.
So do you think the relationship is going to continue between those two?
Yeah, I think the finale they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's what I think.
You heard it first. Exclusive.
That's it. Before we go on to our next topic, I just want to ask all the folks out there listening to us when you're listening to us on iTunes, please rate and comment for us. We really appreciate it because it helps our ratings within iTunes a lot, and it only takes a second. We had a couple of great comments, one of them from Tina, who wrote kind of a dissertation on last week's episode with some great points, and we really appreciate that. And we appreciate it when you write in, give us some comments, give us questions, and rate us, and tell a friend while you're there. There is also a new iTunes app that is a podcast app. when you download that onto your iPad or iPhone, you don't even have to use a computer to do the rating and commenting. So it cuts out an extra step.
That's nice.
So please rate and comment us. We would really appreciate it. What, Steve?
Oh, just, you know.
Just, you know. Okay, I want to talk next about
you.
Ben. I tickle you, don't I? I'm delightful. Let's just say it. Ben and Hal. Okay.
Those two, they frustrate me.
Do they?
Do they?
I mean, you know, it's like back and forth. I mean, I know that's what brothers do, especially those two brothers, because they're trying to both kind of get their own leadership within the group. But, I mean, it's like 1 minute they're getting along great, the next minute they're at each other's necks. So
right.
And well, but I will say I like that Ben, or excuse me, Hal finally called out Ben about the whole lighting of the spines from the harness.
Right.
So
what do they call them?
The
spikes.
Spikes.
Yeah, the spikes from the harness. So I see. You know, Hal's very observant.
I'm assuming Hal was the only one who saw that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering why they're not utilizing Ben a little bit more. He's starting to get the bionic hearing and the strength and everything. And I would be saying, why do we not utilize this?
Well, he's hiding his skills.
Yeah.
Right.
He is hiding his
I
skills.
think Hal's the only one who's aware.
He's honestly, he's worried about, being killed.
Yeah.
Right.
Which with Pope being gone, that diminishes a bit.
Right.
I feel that everyone's a lot safer with Pope
not being there. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I would think that you would if you've got something that can help us, you need to let us know and have that conversation, as opposed to, I don't want them to kill me.
Well, but I also think I think he's concerned about what his powers are and what they're doing, because he still doesn't know. If I think about it, if I discontinue my hate, am I going to be more open to being infiltrated by the bad guys, by the aliens? Or I think he just doesn't really know, is a lot of the reason why he's keeping it secret.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that he has the powers, but I agree with you. I mean, he's probably nervous about what the reaction will be if everyone knows. Now, I am very intrigued to find out what happens down the line with his powers. I mean, is this meaning that he's turning fully into a Skidder, or is this just something that, he's part Skidder, part human, and he's always going to stay that way and always have these extra powers? Or what? I'm trying to figure out where they're going to go with this.
Well, one of the first lines they had on the top of this on previously is the harness is a process.
Yep.
So yeah, they're definitely laying in that he's changing. Obviously, it's not going away. In fact, his skin is starting to change and everything. And so, and remember in season 1 they did find harnesses inside
the Skidder
when they opened it. So
that's sort of the core of them.
Right. And but I don't think they've. Tom knows this, but I don't think Ben knows it. I don't think they've come up and said, "Hey, this is what we know." But that's the debate.
About the core of Skidders?
I think that's the debate you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
Is him going between this is pretty cool to holy crap, what's happening?
Right. Right.
So.
I mean, hey, if I was in that camp, I would say utilize this kid. I mean, let's try and figure this whole thing out as they're trying to plan their strategies and their moves for the next towns that they're covering. I mean, I would definitely utilize Ben's powers to help with the movement.
Do you think there's any, besides Pope, do you think there's any feeling within the second mass that that Ben could be used as a pawn that he's any kind of threat?
I think that
to our people.
A threat
by
to
our people. That Pope's. Sorry, I'm not being very articulate. Pope's thought was Tom and Ben are both threats to Second Mass because they have some Skidder in them, and we don't know what that is. We don't know how that's going to play out. Do you think Pope is the only person who has that thought?
No, I would probably say the majority of people in that camp probably have that thought. I mean, if I was in that camp, I mean, there would be that thought, even though I want to utilize his powers if he's going to stay there. But we already have seen that they can communicate with him.
Right.
So who's not to say that they're
going to controlling
him this entire time, you know? So.
And that was one of those season 1, season 2 points, because they hit that pretty hard in season 1.
Yes, they did.
There was
That's
always
very
somebody
true.
gunning for Ben because, he was the free kid.
Right.
And he had his other friend who wanted to go back.
Right.
And all of that. And now
Ricky.
now it's just, okay, so what's happening with Ben?
Yeah.
And they've really internalized it and kind of kept, although he did reference it in this episode, there hasn't been moments where, you know, don't sit here, or the looks or anything like that with him.
Right.
So, but there hasn't been a lot of opportunities for them to all sit down together anyway.
Right.
So,
Right.
You know, again, to me, it was one of those close up a storyline because we got other stuff coming up.
You think so?
And I think that's what part of what you're talking about. I think is coming up. I think they are going to start showing. Okay, and in fact, you said the actor just referenced it. That
I'll talk about that in the news. Actually,
oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the news that does come up. So. The only other thing that I wanted to talk about with regard to Ben and Hal is just the idea that, you know, the roles are kind of, and this can move into our last point of so Hal was the soldier, and then Ben came up and was starting to be the soldier, and now that kind of mantle is being passed further down to Matt, and so it's all going through the family, and it's just a really interesting, difficult, sometimes painful process for them to go through. And it's going to continue with these growing pains forever, because you're trying to protect your family, but you're also trying to get something done and be part of the resistance, and I love you and I'm mad at you. And
and Hal had to go through that with Ben today, where he's like, I'm your brother, I'm trying to help you, and he says, you can help me by backing off, and that's a really hard place to be, especially when you really are saying nobody knows how deep you are in this.
Right.
But you have to respect it. You have to respect it, because it was a great way of showing how Ben is changing. But here's the weird part. Okay, so now he's getting more powerful, and now he's getting more. Although he's getting quieter, he's also becoming more of a entity. But is it Ben?
Right.
Or is it Skitterblood? You know,
this just made me think of another question. With Ben being able to have these powers and he's changing so much, do you think that he can still do the normal things? Like, I mean, wouldn't his food, what he eats, change, or wouldn't he require more food? Or if you got all these powers, I remember what was the first episode that Hal referenced how many push-ups he could do. Does that mean also that he needs to eat more, or, you know, like all these other things that are just normal things that these other kids are doing? Does that change for him?
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to find out.
Yeah, we haven't. Maybe the reason they can't find any unravaged
grocery stores, because Ben gets there first.
Because Ben gets hungry.
Right.
No, I don't know. Good. Yeah, I think we're going to find out, and as you're going to discuss.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Lourdes. She, so again, following the family theme that we established, she discovered through Diego that her family was indeed probably dead.
Yeah, her aunt and uncle.
And an interesting conversation between her and Jamil. You've got to start hoping for something else, because we all have to have hope. It's the thing that keeps things alive here. What?
Yeah.
Best line in this show.
Yeah.
That was the best line. You got to hope for something else. And that, to me, summed up what a day in the life is in this new world.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, you know, well, then you just got to find something.
Yeah.
You just got to find
Well, that's
something.
what's going to keep you moving every day. There's so much stuff going on there, and you know, they're living in fear at every moment, so you got to keep hope.
So the small things become important, and the big things are just out there.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a nice moment. Obviously, it's a storyline that they're going to introduce.
Right. So you think there's going to be a romance between Lourdes and Jamil?
I think there's a romance.
Well, that's already started.
One of them, this will be predictions, but one of them dies now.
Oh.
Oh, man.
Because
this is not
they've
going to end
introduced
well.
them as a character, you're going to be invested in them.
Drawn to.
Yeah, and then it's going to
break my heart.
And break someone's heart. Because it's grandiose.
Well, I hope not, because Lourdes is all she has left, so we need her to survive.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do.
Oh yeah, for the health clinic.
Exactly.
Right.
Well,
yeah, she's our med
Jamil, I'd
student.
call your agent. Make sure it's only a flesh wound, dude.
Oh my.
Oh man.
And then so what we end up the last little thing. Jean goes off with Diego because she's choosing that as a family now.
Yeah.
I can see that. Diego doesn't want to be part of the resistance. He wants to just survive.
Yep.
she loves him. I think she feels like she's probably come into her own while she has been with that group.
Yeah.
I think that just played into her decision to leave.
Parents have to say goodbye to their kids. Sometimes it's not the situation they want them to leave in, but it's again.
'Cause she's not exactly going off to college.
No, she's not. But again, in this world, it's kind of like, you're going to start off your own family in this weird thing, and so it parallels. It always parallels.
Absolutely.
But
how old do you think she was? Was she around? Her character was
Jeannie?
16, 18?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Because I was trying to figure out with her leaving, was she under 18? That's where I was trying to. I mean, not that it matters in the world of Skitters. Does it really matter how old you are at this point? But I mean, you're like 8 years old and can have a rifle. Or
Remember, she can't work after 10.
Right, exactly.
No, I'm gonna guess she was probably like 18, 19.
18, 19.
Yeah.
Because she said even after you left mom, or mom left or kicked you out or whatever.
Yeah, kicked him out.
So there was some time, So yeah, I'm gonna say 18 or 19.
Yeah.
Ben, do you know how old she might have been?
No.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that.
Yep.
Anything else on our topics? Because I'd like to move on to some news and gossip.
Are we going to do potpourri?
That's what we've just done.
Oh, I didn't know we were on potpourri. I got a couple.
Go.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so this is something that's been bothering me since the episode 1.
Oh, that's right. You do have a potpourri.
That's right.
I've got a big potpourri here. The alien offered a deal to Tom.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not come up
We
anymore.
will give you basically a reservation, and he's not told anybody.
Anyone.
Right.
That we know of.
That's one of those writing things where you go, okay, guys, seriously, you have shown me every episode who Tom is.
Right.
For him to not go back and at least tell Weaver and to say, look, we need to give people the opportunity to say no, but to say it as a group, to say it as a community that we are going to fight, because now they may be legit. They may say, look, you can have Kansas.
40 acres and a mule.
Yeah, exactly. And they've not touched on it.
I think it's going to come up, though.
I hope so, but there's been no reference. And the other reason why I'm surprised is because there was this whole thing with Pope, like, why did you go? Why did you go? And, well, they needed to give this message to you, is why I was there. It would answer a lot of questions unless it's a thing where I don't remember anything on board, in which case, why give him the offer?
Right. If you're going to wipe his brain, don't tell him the information.
Right. Exactly. So that was one thing that I keep going back and forth.
Well, and also I think it really should, because they were headed to go north. Then Avery came, told them they should go to Charleston. They choose to go to Charleston. That should have been one of the conversations. You know what? We have an option 3 here.
Yeah. Exactly. Or do we not trust any of it?
Right.
Another quick potpourri.
Yes.
Is Boone replacing Pope? Because the energy that Pope took with him when he left.
Yeah.
Boone definitely put it back in a little bit, and you realize how that energy is needed to keep that friction within that community.
I like that, Steve, because he does bring like that same Pope energy, but he's manageable.
He is more manageable, but you see how
but he's still a wildfire, but he's manageable.
And how that also gives all the other characters something to respond to when you have that loose cannon in there, and although it's more directed to Tom.
Yeah.
And my last potpourri is, may I please meet the guy who thought it was a good idea to put a TV show in front of coming attractions.
Uh-oh.
Because I would like to take you out to your favorite restaurant, and before you get your food, I thought maybe we could, go to McDonald's and just sit in a booth for a while and look at people, and then eventually we'll go back to your restaurant and maybe there'll be food there.
Well, and
who is the idiot?
Well, I imagine they're doing it this week and last week because it's a brand new show. It premiered last week. I hate it, of course, but I understand the business of it. They're figuring they're going to get you hooked onto this next show, so you can watch it.
What they don't realize,
it never works though. Not for me.
All it does is it pisses you off for The Great Escape. There's no way I'm going to watch that show because you've pissed me off.
Right.
Yeah.
You figure out another way to do it where you're not going to hold me hostage. And oh, by the way, and a quick shout out to Dish. For you for dropping AMC. Okay.
Screw you, Dish.
Screw
you, Dish. Oh my God.
Let's make a song.
Instead of save the sing off.
Screw you, Dish.
Save Breaking Bad.
Yeah, they dropped
and The Walking Dead.
They dropped AMC.
So you're coming over to my place to watch it.
I'm gonna just knock on my neighbor.
You'll be at AfterBuzz. You'll be in the AfterBuzz studio every day watching your shows.
You know what? They should just put on a big screen and let people come by and just
at any time. Just loop all the AMC shows
with a big screw you Dish.
That's it.
All right, that's my potpourri.
That's your potpourri.
That is it.
Let's move on to some news and gossip.
AfterBuzz TV News.
Terry O'Quinn, this is not necessarily new news, but it is something that I hadn't seen before. Terry O'Quinn, who played John Locke from Lost, is guest starring on the 2 final episodes of this season's Falling Skies. So it's going to be really interesting. And he has a lot of scenes. I believe it was with the Hal character. So that's going to be very interesting to see. He's a really compelling actor, very powerful.
Very powerful.
You know, already established in the sci-fi world, so I'm sure a lot of people are waiting to see that, and I just found that a really exciting moment.
And remember, he's in The Stepfather from the 80s, the movie that,
yeah.
the old thriller. He was like the guy who...
What do you possibly remember about the 80s?
I was a kid, but I remember that. It actually scared me. I remember watching HBO, and that movie came on. He was the stepfather, and I remember his face, because when I watched Lost, I was like, oh, God, what do I know that face? And it was the stepfather. Except he had hair. Lots of hair.
Scary.
Yeah, that happens.
That happens.
Okay, real quickly, Connor Jessup, who plays Ben, was asked what were his favorite episodes of the season, and he said episodes 6 and 7. And the reason why, and we were teasing this a little bit in our conversation, he said Ben changes very drastically over the course of those 2 episodes, and a lot happens to Ben. And so, of course, that's a moment where, as an actor, it's a very fun thing to play. But so we're going to see some transformation with the character Ben in episode 6 and 7. So we only have 2 to wait. And,
I can't wait.
Awesome. And it's going to be really interesting to see. Well, I imagine there will be gore. There will be
I think it's going to be very
violence.
dark. Very dark.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
I think so. You had some ratings news.
I did.
Yes?
I actually just saw something that popped up today that said TNT was saying that the ratings for Falling Skies is still doing very well, and they expect the ratings to increase because now the NBA Finals are no longer taking place. So that 18 to 49-year-old person who may have tuned into the game and other things will now be watching TNT and keeping Falling Skies impressions and viewership going up.
Up in the ratings.
How did the Lakers do in the finals?
We don't want to talk about that. That would be a different time.
Yeah, we're not talking about the Lakers.
Send your letters to AFTERBUZZ.
I was going to say, we might get a little bit of hate mail on that one, Steve.
Send it to TamaraBerg.com.
Hey! Don't throw me under the bus. Don't throw me into the skitters. Finally, I have a familiar face returns to second mass in the 5th episode, and his intentions are remaining unknown. Who could it possibly be? Who have we seen go away who hasn't been killed? Oh, I'm thinking Pope's coming back.
We always have to question his intentions.
Yeah.
You know what I think? I think somebody boils asparagus and he comes out of the woods like, I can't take it anymore.
You've got to steam it.
We're not going to
For
boil
God's
asparagus.
sake, can't we get some garlic around here? Also, episode 5 is going to be a big Hal and Maggie episode, according to Drew Roy, who plays Hal.
Listen, I'm waiting for them to do the wild thing. I mean, we're 3.
Might be happening next week.
It's about that time. I think they've surpassed the sexual tension.
I was a big fan of 24. All seasons that it was on, there was always a lot of sexual tension between him and the girl, and at every episode there'd be just a little breather, and I'd go, is it time for awesome sex? And it almost never happened. And I think we're ready for some awesome sex on Falling Skies, right?
Even though they're traveling, I'm sure they can find a couple bushes or
Absolutely.
Hopefully a warm lake or something.
Yeah, warm lake.
And a tube of toothpaste.
Yeah.
And a tube of toothpaste. Maybe they can do it in the river.
Or some mint that they can just...
Yeah, mint grows crazy in the wild.
Sometimes I have to suspend my disbelief a little more.
I think that is it for our news and gossip. So let's move on to predictions, shall we?
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
I predict Pope's going to come back. I predict there's going to be sex coming up very soon. I think Hal and Maggie are going to hook up. I think Ben's going to go through a lot of transformations in episodes 6 and 7. How about that?
You nailed it.
I think you got everything.
You just nailed it.
When you do the news,
that's all my bullet points.
you'll learn some things.
Here's my prediction. I think a lot of the storyline now starts to focus on Charlton. And
Charleston
and the journey. I think because they keep talking about it, but we don't see them progressing anywhere.
Right.
So I think that this was, again, let's clear this up, and now let's start this other cool storyline.
Yeah.
So we're going to start making the move to Charleston. Do you think they'll be there before the end of the season, or do you think the end of the season will culminate in Charleston?
I think, I was thinking that they get there and realize it's all a sham, but there's something they need to do there.
Okay.
So it could be, you know, and I'm just pulling this out, but it could be season 3 is Charleston.
Is all Charleston.
You know, it's like this huge encampment of, you know, humans or something. I don't know.
Well, and one of the things that they talked about a lot, we've discussed this before about the LA Times articles that we were reading, that American history is going to be doing a lot of parallels with the show this season. We have not seen that coming up. So that's I think going to be starting to get laid heavily in, and again why the writing is maybe getting a little more focused because we've got to go there. Any predictions for you?
I think there's going to be a major blow up between Hal and Ben coming up in the future. That's what I think. I think they're teasing us with this back and forth, and I think eventually there's going to be some big divide between those two.
I don't think we're seeing Amelia Earhart again.
Avery Churchill.
Amelia
we'll see what happens in Charleston.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
might be flying a banner.
Tina.
She might be flying a banner.
Low, so the skitters don't see her.
I think it was Tina who wrote to us on iTunes, said, you know, we didn't see her back. She had long hair and a scarf.
That point. I like that point a lot.
Oh, that's
and
a good
she also
point.
said we know that they can dial that down. So you know, we'll see.
It'll be interesting.
And I can see that happening.
I love, real quick, we are working on, well, 1/3 of us is working very hard on bringing some people in.
Yes.
Nothing that you can announce fully.
Not fully, but we will in the next couple weeks have a couple of the guest people or the superstars from the show as guests on our show.
Which is, so if you've got questions that we're not answering or we can't answer, or you're screaming at your radio saying, why don't you answer this?
Yeah.
iTunes, or send it over to AfterBuzzTV.com, or, you know, anywhere.
You can tweet questions to us as well. There's also a Facebook page for AfterBuzz. There are lots of ways you can get us.
We do read them.
We do, absolutely.
Like, you know, the reference we just made, and we will utilize it.
We love it.
Yeah, it really helps us. It gives it just helps.
The show's getting more exciting, and our show's getting more exciting because we absolutely have guests coming on, and I've been working with a publicist. You've been working with actually at least one of the actors directly, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we're really excited about it.
Stick with us. We're going to even be getting better as we go forward in the season. Steve,
I know a guy that did greenery in episode 1.
Tell us how we can tweet you about that.
Bottomley Steve. Or, you know, you can send me something at AfterBuzzTV.com.
Bottomley Steven.
Bottomley Steven.
Thank
you, my IT guy that set it up for me.
His own Twitter account. You, Derrial.
You can reach me at Twitter at Derrial Christon, DERRIAL, last name CHRISTON.
And you can find me at Tamara Berg, TAMARABERG on Twitter. Also, my website is tamaracentral.com. Join us next week for the awesome episode 5 of Falling Skies. We will see you then.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later!
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.